Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and the Earthen allied race are finally playable as of this week's update. This week features the final of the main story chapters of War Within before Season 1 content, and with a couple of side quests on top of the main quests that you have to complete, Earthen race now is finally playable and available. They have access to a variety of different classes with a variety of their own unique customization options, mounts, a new set of racials, passives, and actives, but also a heritage armor set which you unlock once you reach at least level 50 on an Earthen character. So if you plan on playing an Earthen as either a main or potentially as an alt going forward in War Within, this video is going to go over all of the different ways that you can take advantage of the open world as well as some of the current bonuses that are active in order to get yourself an Earthen character to max level rather quickly. As always, if you guys want to see more guides like these for the War Within expansion, be sure to follow this channel and subscribe. Otherwise, let's dive right in. So the fastest way of getting an Earthen to max level, I mean, technically, is just by buying a boost. I know, a bit of a cheeky answer, but that is technically the fastest way if you were trying to get an Earthen at max level. Although between the amazing leveling of the Warband system, plus the Darkmoon Fair that is currently active, plus a handful of items that we'll be using in order to speed up our level and experience, leveling a fresh new Earthen from 10 to 70 is incredibly fast, and it won't even put a dent in your wallet. However, if you do plan on leveling an Earthen from level 10 all the way to max, you will need a few consumables, at least one of them, in order to make that leveling journey a little bit quicker. Now, the first item you want to acquire is the Draught of 10 Lands, a Battle for Azeroth potion that increases your experience gain by 10% until a certain point, like level 49 specifically. This is a Warfront potion, or a potion that you can obtain from the Warfront Quartermasters. There's one for Alliance and one for Horde. Both of them can be found at the docks, either in the docks of Zuldazar or at the docks of Kultiras for the Alliance. And the potion does not really cost a lot. It really just costs a little bit of this honor-bound service metal, which is a warband transferable currency. Especially if you played back in WoD, you might actually have had already a little bit of this currency stored up from the previous expansion. So if you want to transfer that currency onto a singular character and then use it to buy a bunch of fresh new potions, that is one way to do it. If you haven't played back in BFA, to unlock the zone of the Battle for Azeroth areas, you'll first need to do an intro questline in order to unlock them. This shortly leads you to a questline to unlock the Warfront system. If you don't have any of the currency and you still need a little bit more, however, there's usually going to be a Warfront portal at the Quartermasters themselves, either to Darkshore or to the Arathi. Once in the zone, you have a couple of different world quests that you can complete, all of which award you honor-bound service medals, which is the commendation currency that you need in order to purchase the potions from the Quartermaster. Now, another XP buff that is currently available is the Darkmoon Fair buff. This event appears once every few weeks, so just be sure to check the calendar to see if the fair is currently active, but the fair provides you a couple of different bonuses, one of them being an experience bonus. If you want to have an easier time getting into the fair from Orgrimmar Stormwind, find one of these fair mystic mages and then pay him 25 copper in order to get teleported directly to the fair grounds. Once there, go through the portal, and then you end up on the actual island of the Darkmoon Fair. Once inside, buy tickets to either ride the carousel or the roller coaster. Either one works, and you'll get a buff called We, which increases your rep gains, but also experience gains by 10%. And you want to make sure to double back to Darkmoon Fair. If you ever lose the buff, you can lose the buff by letting it run out, but also if you die, you also lose the buff, which is unfortunate. So try not to die while in dungeons or while questing, in order to preserve this buff for as long as possible. So when it comes to the actual route, the route is going to be a little bit different for Alliance and Horde, but at least it starts in the same spot. The first thing we need to do is get access to the Dalaran Hearthstone as well as the Garrison Hearthstone, because on a fresh new character, you actually cannot use either one of these Hearthstones. You need to first enable them by visiting those relevant zones. We'll start off with the Dalaran Hearthstone, and then we'll get the Garrison Hearthstone later by heading over to Chromitime and enabling Chromitime for the Legion expansion. This will let you either begin the intro into Legion or will allow you to skip it in order to get into the Legion version of Dalaran much quicker. Once there, talk to the first NPC to finish up a quest so you get the start for Legion Dalaran in order to gain a copy of the Dalaran Hearthstone, but now it also enables you the use of the Dalaran Hearthstone, so you can go back there, which you'll use in order to get back a little quicker. Also, if the Darkmoon Fair is up, right now would be a good time to head back over to Stormwind or Orgrimmar to pick up your 10% experience buff before we get started. After we get out Dalaran Hearthstone, we then want to head back to Stormwind or Orgrimmar and then talk to Chromie one more time to enable TBC time walking. We're not actually going to be leveling in any of the Outland zones, but we'll be using TBC time walking for some extremely efficient dungeoneering. Technically, from this point forth, if you're a tank or a healer, or better yet, have a pre-made 5-man or a 4-man group to spam queue dungeons, dungeon questing is going to be the fastest way to get to max level, or at least to level 70 on your Earthen character. Dungeons in TBC also have a variety of those instances are going to have quests in those dungeons that award a very generous amount of experience on top of the actual dungeons and the experience from killing all the bosses. So dungeon leveling is technically the fastest if you have a good group that's doing them efficiently. However, there's a lot of new players coming back to the game, but also players picking up Earthen for the first time and maybe checking out a class they don't play normally. So your experience will vary. Because of this inconsistency, unless you have a pre-made dungeon group of like 5 or 4 players that could spam queue them and do them as efficiently as possible, I found it actually more consistent to mostly focus on questing and doing dungeons on the side once in a while just to get some supplementary XP, but for the most part focusing on questing through the various zones. But it's still worth enabling TBC time walking even if you're not going to be doing that many dungeons. As for the actual questing that we'll be doing, the zones we'll be leveling through while queuing some dungeons. Alliance players will start out in Elven Forest, particularly in Eastvale Lodging Camp, where you want to clear out the entirety of Eastvale Lodging Camp and the surrounding quests, get them all out of the way, not really need to go any further than the Pumpkin Patch or Tower of Zora, just the Eastvale Lodging Camp quest is enough. From there, we'll actually be heading east further into Red Ridge Mountains. There's a tower near 3 Corners where you want to do all the quests in that area. This will eventually take you to Lakeshire and do most of the quests in Red Ridge. Most of them are going to start in Lakeshire. Do as much of Red Ridge Mountains as you can up until you encounter the quest called Prisoners of War. Once you see it, you actually want to back up out of there and head into Duskwood, which is going to be south of Red Ridge Mountains. A lot of the quests are going to start in Darkshire, and you kind of just want to do the entirety of Duskwood and complete the whole zone. It's incredibly efficient and will do a ton of XP. From there on, Duskwood would be second to last zone you'll want to level in. Finally, you want to start leveling in Loch Modan as your final zone, and by Loch Modan, you should be at least getting pretty close to level 60 or even 70, but if you clear out the entire zone, you should be 70, ready for War Within expansion stuff. As an Alliance player, you also should head back to Stormwind to refresh your Darkman Fair buff if it's active, but also once you hit level 20, you should go back in order to enable War Mode. War Mode gives you 10% additional experience, and in the pathing that we take for War Mode leveling, specifically using Chromie time, we're actually in a weird different phase where we're not going to be seeing a lot of players of the opposing faction. It doesn't mean that you're never going to see a single player of the opposing faction, but you're less likely to encounter players of the Horde variety, so you're not really going to be seeing PvP encounters where you could potentially die and then slow down your entire progress of leveling characters as quickly as possible. So War Mode provides you 10% additional experience, plus PvP talents, which can sometimes, depending on the class, be very, very strong in the open world content. But the 10% additional experience, on top of all the other bonuses, is what we are primarily looking for, so be sure to enable it at level 20. Now, Horde players will also be doing a very similar thing, but your questing path is going to be very, very, very weird. First of all, you are actually not going to be questing in Kalimdor at all. Horde players want to head over to Orgrimmar, go to the portal room, and then head to Silvermoon. Behind where Lorthamar and some of the other Silvermoon leaders are will be a translocator that takes you to the undead zones, starting with Churchful Glades. From Churchful Glades, you'll want to actually go further down into Silverpine Forest, and this is where you're going to begin questing. Silverpine Forest is a weird zone that has a little bit of cutscenes as well as a bit of roleplay between characters, which feels like it's going to slow down your questing experience completely. And it does feel slow, but it's actually a deceptively efficient zone when it comes to XP. It is really quick, and it really, really speeds up towards the tail end of the entire zone. So just start the quest in Silverpine Forest and follow the main story all the way through as it heads into Hillsbrad Foothills. Complete all of Hillsbrad Foothills as well as Silverpine Forest, because those are going to be the most efficient questing areas after. But once you're done with both of them, Horde is in a bit of a weird spot, and this is where we will be utilizing that Garrison Hearthstone that we'll talk about in just a second. But with Garrison Hearthstone, we'll be able to access the Warlords of General zones, where we'll initially start in Frostfire Ridge. After you complete the entirety of Silverpine as well as Hillsbrad, you'll actually be questing in Gorgrond, Talador, and Spires of Iraq. Not necessarily questing, mostly bonus objectives with some quests. You'll have a quest in Gorgrond in order to get you started, at least get you on your path, in order to be able to establish an outpost in Gorgrond, and you definitely want to complete all those quests to help establish a horde outpost in that area. Once you do that, there's going to be 3 zones in Gorgrond you'll want to focus on. One of them is going to be the Stonewall Arena towards the bottom area, the Grand Canyon kind of below Drav the Ruiner World Boss, as well as the entirety of Rexar questline, as well as all of the bonus objectives in the zone. Bonus objectives are actually surprisingly good for additional XP, but they're also fairly efficient and pretty easy to do in most cases, except for that 1k with those goblin dweller looking things. Those could be a little bit of a pain. From there on, after you do all the bonus objectives in those 3 zones of Gorgrond, you then want to move on to Talador, and there'll be outposts right next to Fort Brint. There'll be one for the horde there. There, you want to make sure to also establish another outpost, and you want to construct the arsenal, and then do that zone's bonus objectives. Primarily focus on the Magran Logworks, the Zangara, as well as the Aruna's Desolation. Afterwards, you'll want to head over to Spires of Iraq, and you'll have a quest, the Shadows of Sketes, which gets you started with Spires of Iraq, and you kind of just want to follow the main storyline all the way until you get to establish another horde outpost where you want to open up a tavern, which provides 20% bonus experience in that entire zone. And you kind of want to finish up the rest of your leveling experience in Spires of Iraq as the horde's most efficient zone all the way until level 17. Just like Alliance players, as Horde players, once you hit level 20, you also want to make sure to go grab the Wormwood bonus in Orgrimmar. The easiest way to do that is to set a hearth at a local inn in the current zone that you are leveling, then use the Dalaran Hearthstone to then go back to Orgrimmar, enable War Mode, but also go back and refresh your Darkmoon Fire buff if that is currently active, then hearth back to continue questing in your current zone. Just like Alliance players, Horde players also should not see too many players of the opposing faction, so there's pretty low chance of you encountering the other faction for PvP combat. You might, but in my time leveling this character, I didn't encounter a single player of the Horde faction since this Earthen was Alliance. So your chances of encountering the opposite faction are not 0, but they're definitely very, very low. Also, for both factions, around level 25 to 35, this is where I feel like the leveling kind of goes into a bit of a lull. It kind of starts to slow down and the speed of leveling gets a bit of a dip. This is where, once you hit level 25 or so, I like to go back to Chromie and to enable Warlords of Draenor time walking. So you're going to switch it from TBC to WoD, and then do the entirety of WoD intro opening questline. The WoD intro it takes a bit of time, but it's hyper efficient is what I would describe it as when it comes to just the amount of raw experience gain and the amount of activities you have to do in order to gain a level. It really helps out during that level 25 to 35 lull that usually happens every single zone that I leveled in. It allows you to gain a bunch of experience while also at the same time establishing your Warlords of Draenor garrison, which also gives you access to that garrison Hearthstone. All you have to do is do the entirety of WoD intro all the way until you establish your garrison, and once you do, you can safely leave that zone, go back to Chromie, enable TBC time walking so you can continue to queue for TBC dungeons while questing out in the open world. From level 70 to 80, it's really simple. We're just going to be spamming dungeons until max level. You can do a bit of crafting by creating first-time craft items, which provides you with experience bonuses, and without too much capital invested into the auction house and without breaking the bank, you can get yourself enough materials to grind through leatherworking or blacksmithing or jewel crafting or even tailoring in order to be able to get enough first-time craft bonuses to essentially blow through level 79 to 80 for the final bonus, or just do more dungeons if that's how you want to finish it out. But the last 10 levels to 70 to 80 seems to be the most straightforward and maybe even the fastest, depending on how fast you're getting those dungeon queues. But whether you're queuing them as a DPS, tank, or a healer, right now everybody's playing the expansion, everybody is leveling the character, so the earlier you do it, the faster you can get through that leveling journey and reach max level on your Earthen character. But with that being said, that is going to be how to quickly and efficiently level an Earthen character if you're not willing to shell out the money in order to buy a boost outright. But with that being said, I do want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. I would very, very much appreciate it. It helps out the channel tremendously, especially with the launch of a brand new expansion. And if you have any questions regarding leveling or get stumped while leveling your Earthen character, be sure to join our Discord community down below. there's a good chance either somebody in the community might be able to answer some of your questions, or I'll try to be at least as helpful as I can be with some of the information that I potentially could offer to make that leveling journey even easier. So join our Discord community. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below of this video, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.